Hey everybody, and welcome back to another fun and exciting pre-algebra class. In today's lesson, we're going to continue on in Chapter 1. We'll be in Lesson 1.5, and in 1.5, we'll be using the skills that we used in 1.4 to learn about factoring to do what's called the GCF, the greatest common factor, and the LCM, or the LCD, least common multiple or least common denominator. So these are things that you'll be using all the way through the book. So make sure that you pay really good attention and take your notes, write things down so that you're able to do the practice problems when you get to those. Greatest common factor. What is it? Well, the greatest common factor is the largest factor that is shared by two or more numbers, and that's called the GCF. You'll hear me say, find the GCF, greatest common factor. So it's important that you understand that right there. Okay, and what is the GCF? Well, it's the largest factor shared between two more numbers. What does that mean? Well, let's take it piece by piece. What is the greatest? Well, the greatest is the biggest or the largest. What is common? Common means same. So largest shared or same factor. Okay, so there's the three words. Greatest common factor, the largest shared factor. What does that mean? Okay, well, here's what it means. Well, let's first of all talk about the steps, and then we'll kind of talk about what it looks like, and then hopefully you'll make some sense of it. So what are the steps to finding these? Well, what we want to do is we want to take two numbers. For instance, down here, I have the two numbers. I have 36 and 90. So we want to take those two numbers and we want to find the GCF of those two numbers, the greatest common factor. So what do? Number one, we write the prime factorization of the numbers. You can do it however you want to. I kind of like this method, and so I start with 2. I always start with the lowest prime number. Remember, what are our prime numbers? 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and so on. These are the ones that you're going to need to know the most because those are the ones that we use the most. So make sure that you know those. I would go all the way up to 19, but make sure you know at least these ones right here. So I always start with the number 2. Why? Just start with that one because if you start with that one, then you can always go from there. So 2. 2 goes into 3. How many times? 2 goes into 3 one time. Carry the 1, 16. 2 goes into 16 8 times. 2 goes into 36 18 times. Do a 2 again, and that goes in 9 times. Try 2 again. It doesn't work this time, so then we have to go to the next one. So now we go to the 3. So now 3 goes into 9. How many times? Well, it goes 3 times. Notice we got a prime number here, so we are done. So you want to prime factor 36. Then we want to jump over here and we want to prime factor 90. Again, always start with the number 2. 2 goes into 90 45 times. Now you would try 2 again here. 2 does not work, but 3 does. 3 goes into 45 one time. 3 goes into 15. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm doing that right. Yes, 3 goes into 15 5 times. Okay. All right, so 3 goes into 45 15 times, and then 3 also goes into 15 5 times. So there's your prime factorization of 36 and 90. One way that you can check that, just to make sure you didn't mess anything up, is just multiply down that list. So 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. 2 times 3 is 6 times 3 times 5. 6 times 3 is going to be 18 times 5. 18 times 5 does give you 90. Okay, so we're correct. I won't check the other one, but that's the way you can check it just to make sure that you did it correctly. All right, now, so that's step number 1. That's the easy step, right? We know how to do that. We learned that last lesson. Step number 2, circle the common factors. Oh, that's an easy one too. Yeah. So just go here and circle the common. What does it mean, common? It means that they're shared by both. So look, 2 is common with 2. Now look over here. This 2, there's not another 2 over here, is there? So that 2 is not common. Notice 3 is common with 3, and there's another 3, and there's another 3. So the 2 is not used and the 5 is not used. Okay, so now we're done with that part. So that's easy. Now it says multiply the common factors together. And maybe it would be better if I wrote here, let me change this, multiply the, I'm going to write pairs of common factors together. Multiply the pairs of common factors together. What do I mean by that? Okay, what do I mean by the pairs? So you would take the pair one time. So here's an example. 2 and 2. I take that one time. I get 1, 2. I don't get 2 2s. I get 1, 2. So I take the 2. Notice I have a pair of 3s. So I would multiply that. But I don't just have one pair of 3s. I have 2 pairs of 3s. So the 3s I would multiply twice because I have 2 pairs of the 3s. Now, here's what we do. Multiply them together. So we're going to multiply this out. 2 times 3 is 6. Oh, 6 times 3, sorry about that. 6 times 3, there we go, is 18. The GCF, the greatest common factor of these numbers, is 18. The GCF is 18. Okay. There are other ways to find the GCF. That is just one way. If you want to research another way and do it, I tried to show you one of the easier ways, one of the simpler ways to do it, but there are other ways. Notice right here, I said use the GCF when reducing fractions. So what if these numbers right here were fractions? What if this was 36 over 90? Okay, so we're going to take our fraction that we made, 36 over 90, and we're going to take our GCF, which was 18, and we're going to divide each one by 18. And this is going to reduce our fraction to lowest terms. 18 into 36 actually goes 2 times. Okay? And 18 goes into 90 5 times. So 2 over 5 is the same as 36 over 90. We just reduced the fraction. How did we reduce the fraction? With our GCF. Find your GCF and then reduce the fraction by the GCF. Are there other ways to reduce fractions? Yes, there are. You could have started with, instead of going right to 18, you could have started with 2. Okay? You could have said, oh, I'm going to reduce by 2. But you would have had more steps to go through. I understand you had steps to go through to get the GCF. So this is just one way. I'm just trying to show you ways to do this. So one way to use the GCF is by reducing fractions. That's probably the main way that you're going to use the GCF. You will use it for other things as well. Okay. The next thing that we want to talk about in this lesson is the least common multiple, or what we call the LCM. The LCM. This is very similar to the GCF, except it's different. There are differences, but it's very similar. We're going to find it almost the same way. What does it mean? Well, let's start with that. Least common multiple. What is least? Well, the least is the smallest multiple. There's the same word, so I didn't do very good of giving you a new definition there, but I'm going to give you a new definition. A multiple is the product when two numbers are multiplied together. So 1 times 3 equals 3. That's the multiple. Okay. 2 times 3 equals 6. 6 would be the multiple. Okay. So those are the multiples. The multiple is like your product, your solution to a multiplication problem. So the smallest multiple shared, and that's that word common, shared by 2 or more numbers, is called the LCM. How do we find the LCM? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to find the LCM almost the same way that we found the GCF, except for we need to add one step. Okay? That's the only thing that we need to do here is add one step. So, step number 1, write the prime factorization of the number. Just like we did up here, write the prime factorization of the number. So come back over here and let's write our two numbers. This time our number is going to be 36 and 40. So we want to prime factor that. So 2, we already did 36 once. 9, there we go, 3 and 3. Now we're going to prime factor 40. We didn't do 40, we did 90 earlier, so we'll have to do this one. 2 goes into that 20 times, 2 goes into that 10 times, 2 goes into that 5 times. 5 is prime, so we're done. So there are your prime factors, okay? Step number 2, we want to circle the common factors. Circle the common. So look, 2 and 2. Then we have another 2 and another 2. 3 is not common, right? So that 3 is not common, that 2 is not common, that 5 is not common. So all we have are the 2 sets of 2's. So we're going to do the same thing. Remember when I changed that earlier, I said I didn't really like how I had that written. Multiply the pairs of common factors together. So I changed that again right there. Multiply the pairs of common factors together. So in other words, we're going to come over here and we're going to say, I can do this right here. 2 times 2, because we have 2 sets of 2, right? So 2 pairs of 2, 2 times 2. But notice what this says. This is the new step, step number 4. Multiply the leftovers or the non-common factors. Look, we have a leftover 3, 3, 2, 5. Times 3, times 3, times 2, times 5. Okay? So we're going to find the least common multiple. We have to do all this. This is a big multiplication problem. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 times 2 is 10. All right, so all I did right there was basically broke that down and multiplied. And you can do that. I didn't break any math rules there. 9 times 10 is 90 times 4. So 4 times 90. I'll just come over to my calculator and do that. That'll save me a little bit of time. 4 times 90 equals 360. Well, LCD, I put LCD. LCM, sorry, is 360. 360. Now, you might think, well, I thought you said that it was going to be the least common multiple. That's a really big number to be the least common multiple. I know. Here's something to remember. And it seems backwards, but usually your least common multiples are going to be bigger numbers, and your GCF, your greatest common factor, those are going to be their smaller numbers. Like I said, it seems backwards because the least you think should be bigger. But why is that? Because the factor's breaking down and the multiple is multiplying. So the multiple is getting bigger and the factor is getting smaller. When do we use the LCM? We use it when adding and subtracting fractions, and we're going to get to that very quickly, but let me just do one real quick, and then I'll be done with this lesson. So if I have 1/2 plus 2/3, okay? So this is my addition problem, 1/2 plus 2/3. I can't add that together, can I? No. Because why? I have to have a common denominator. I have to get the 2 and the 3 to be the same. Now, I'm doing a very simple one here. So if I prime factor the number 2, it's already factored. If I prime factor the number 3, it's already factored. So I have nothing common, so I take them and multiply them. My LCM, or in this case, my least common denominator, is going to be these two things multiplied by each other. It's going to be 6. So I'm going to have 6 as my new denominator, my common denominator, okay? And so what do? In this case, I try to get them to be both 6. I multiply this times what to get to be 6? 3 times 2 equals 6. I have to do the same thing to the numerator. Hopefully you've seen this before. This is like a 5th, 6th grade level type math. If you haven't seen it, then, let me know and we can work on this. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times what gives me 6? 2 times 3 gives me 6. Here, 1 times 3 gives me 3. So now I have my new fractions. Notice my new fractions are just equivalent fractions. 1/2 is the same as 3/6. Exact same thing. I'm just writing it differently. And I'm going to now add these. I add the numerators. 3 plus 4 is 7 over 6. My new answer is 7 over 6, or I would simplify that to 1 and 1/6. 1 and 1/6. Now, if you don't know this right now, if you didn't follow that right now, it's okay. We're going to get to this. I'm going to teach this again in an upcoming lesson. The key is that you need to understand the LCM, okay? How do you understand the LCM? Just follow the steps, okay? If you will learn to follow the steps that I give you in pre-algebra, you will get a lot of these questions correct, okay? How do you find the GCF? Follow the steps. How do you find the LCM? Follow the steps. All right, hopefully you learned something there. Maybe you had never figured out how to do the LCM or the GCF. And in today's lesson, you finally figured it out. So good job. Maybe it was just review for you and you were able to just be able to do it because you remembered the steps. Either way, make sure you write those steps down, work those steps, and work on these practice problems when you get a chance. All right, that's all I've got for you. Hope you have a good one. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.